So if we want to understand the next developments in the matter of the Mar-a-Lago execution of a lawful search warrant, which of course the criminal ex-president immediately labeled an invasive raid, when in fact it was completely lawful and mostly, if not totally, occasioned by his behavior through refusing to provide the records he was being asked to produce. All of that relates to the astrology in that here we're looking at the current positions, but if we go back to August 8th, when the initial event happened, I recall saying that in part the moon around that time in the early Capricorn degrees trigger Donald Trump's Access Hollywood T-square, which of course is a problem, as is the fact that there was a Venus-Pluto opposition in the sky on that day connecting to his 12th sign Saturn-Venus conjunction, and moreover they're forming a T-square because that's the opposition, but then they both square Eris, so that adds to the intensity and to the problem for him since the Eris is in his legal house, etc. But then, as he always does, he reacted with outrage and the situation grew to a boil a few days later with the full moon by the Thursday, because the full moon triggers the Saturn-Uranus square, and you notice that the sun is also working the same degrees. So you've got a lot of energy in these fixed degrees, which, as it turns out, are very significant for him because they happen to be the midpoint of his rising Mars-Pluto. So what's next? We keep going forward. We notice that here we are today, and we can guess that looking for the degrees of Saturn and Uranus, they're key. And we notice that the moon, though currently in Cancer, in about 3 days, the 25th, it's going to get to those degrees once again, and notice that Venus is there as well. So you have Venus and the moon, you have the Uranus, and you have Saturn in degrees that connected to the same degrees that were triggered at the time of the search back on August 8th. And moreover, you can also look at this ephemeris here, which shows you the motion of planets and specifically when they make stations. And whenever there's an event, I always look for the nearest station to get a clue as to what is most important. August features the Uranus station, which in fact is essentially happening as we speak. You can see a planet stationing when its degrees come to a standstill. This greatly increases the power and energy of the planet. Also tells you that the Orange Menace found this to be quite a shock. Uranus is the energy of something unexpected and shocking that happens suddenly and like a lightning bolt. Even though it's earlier in the month, Uranus in a sense rules the month by virtue of its stationary position, which you see in these degrees here, but Saturn is nearby, and they're basically chasing each other in a square, and then whenever there are planets somewhere in the fixed part of the chart, it'll trigger it. So on Thursday, that's what happens. And what is it we know? That apparently that's when the judge will be releasing his judgment in the matter of the affidavit, because Trump and his team are claiming they want the affidavit released, which in fact they don't. because if that affidavit were to be released, it would likely make him look really bad. But he, of course, wants to get names so he can start, defaming people and actually putting them in danger. So it's extremely unlikely that the judge will do that. By people, I mean FBI agents, witnesses, and so forth. Very unlikely that the judge is going to acquiesce to his wishes. And so the most likely outcome will be that he'll say no. Probably because what the government will provide will be heavily redacted to protect sources and witnesses and so forth. And so you can expect that Trump and his team will likely go on the attack once again to try to make a case for why this is incredibly outrageous and has never before happened in history, blah, blah, blah. Of course it hasn't happened before in history because we've never had a criminal crook as a president. That's why it's never happened before in history. So, in any case, look for Thursday to be a significant day in this matter, but extremely unlikely to provide any kind of good news for the criminal ex-president.